In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-6 et seq., adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by advertising in the Star Ledger, El Nuevo Coquí, Haiti Progrès, Luz Americano newspapers, and by distribution to administrative offices of the Newark Public Schools. A copy of this meeting notice was forwarded to City Hall for posting. This is a regular advisory board meeting, Tuesday, June 15th, 2010. Mr. Jeffries.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Call the roll.
Okay. Yes.
Ms. King?
Here.
Mr. Lamort? Mr. Lewis?
Here.
Ms. Pintor? Mr. Rivera? Ms. Romero? Ms. Davis-Bay? Yes. Ms. White?
We'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. We'll have a welcome from the principal of Central High School, Mr. Raz Baraka.
All right. Actually, I'm going to allow George to welcome everybody to Central High School, and I have we cut it down to two students now. One is going to read a poem, and the other one is going to read an excerpt from her research paper that they did. Copper Sun, they had a book fair today, and one of them is going to read a little bit from that. So, George, you can welcome everybody to our school.
Good evening, everybody. I feel like it's just so down in here, so let's try to bring it up. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the beautiful Central High School, of which I am a very proud student. My name is George Jones, senior class president here at Central. I would like to welcome you all to this wonderful institution of higher learning. I would like to welcome the advisory board. Thank you for coming. Thank you all.
I think the kids are in the hallway. Dashe and Aisha, where are they? Oh, Dashe, I guess you could use that mic. And Aisha Rivera. Dashe has a poem that she wrote of her own called This Heartache Never Ends. And Aisha Rivera is going to read Rice Crops in South Carolina, which is an excerpt from one of the research she did from the book Copper Sun, talking about the slave trade.
Okay, this poem is called When Will This Heartache Ever End? When will this heartache ever end? I just want my heart to smile again. The pain is like blood seeking through my skin. When will this heartache ever end? My heart is broken into 10. Do you realize you just caused the sin? Where have your heart really been? When will this heartache ever end? You were always walking around with a grin. I was the one heartbroken at the end. When will this heartache ever end? I thought you were supposed to be my best friend. I guess I was wrong again. When will this heartache ever end? Did you want to be a part of the trend? To break girls' heart just like your friend? Now I say you were never my boyfriend. You was just here for pretend. When will this heartache ever end? Thank you.
I will be reading what I learned from the book Copper Sun
from my honors literacy class, Mr. Dade. Reading this novel has opened my eyes to a more large and extensive way of thinking when it comes to slavery. When you're in grammar school, the only time you learn about the history of your ancestors or slavery is during Black History Month. When this history is taught, no one goes in great detail about the way these slaves' humanity was belittled or they were robbed of their lives. We only talk about Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, and Harriet Tubman. Then for the other 11 months, we are compared to them with statements like, "You children today don't understand the meaning of segregation. Your used books will have been in top brand new condition when it came to the books blacks had back in the day. You choose not to take this for granted." I had no idea that there were people like Polly living on a plantation. Polly was a white girl around her early adolescent ages in life, working for the Derbys as an indentured servant. That relationship, as far as that of Miss Derby and Noah, was going on. Noah was a Negro who lived on Mr. Derby's plantation as well, only he was requested by Miss Derby to be her bodyguard. Only he wasn't just protecting her, they were having an affair. In this story, Miss Derby states, "But I love Noah. I have for many years, and he loves me. But now Noah will die, and so will I. My husband is going to kill both of us and our baby." This event in the novel really broke the ice for me because I found it amazing how a white woman was in love with a Negro. I was always aware that males were going around raping the slaves or having relations with them outside of their marriage and making babies, but now this has turned the table. We still have the mentality of slave masters. We believe that whipping our children are the better ways of keeping them in place and doing the right thing. We sell ourselves as if we were objects or products to society, whether it's to make yourself feel good, get the public's attention, or even living up to the Joneses. We are all guilty of traits that the slave master had. Although we now are friends with all races and we have come together, we are not yet at peace. We still judge and discriminate. We envy and talk about each other's like we are different, but fail to realize we are all the same, because the truth is there's only one real race, and that is the human race. If we were all to be cut, we will all bleed red. So what makes them so different from us?
Thank you. Another round of applause for the young people, please. We now have a special presentation. We have three individuals who supported the work of the Newark Public Schools Advisory Board for a long period of time, who will be leaving us. I want to turn this over right now to Mr. Lewis for a special presentation.
We were asked to please stand at this time. Miss Faith Fleming. Miss Virginia Remsen. And Miss Cheryl C. My grandmother always told me, if you don't want to pronounce nobody's name wrong, respond to them by their first letter. So at this time, I'm going to start with Michelle. The Newark Public School Advisory Board salutes your 35 years of dedication service as
As the administrative secretary in the office of the superintendent, we honor her service on this special occasion of her retirement. She had worked diligently to maintain quality standards and have provided valuable assistance whenever her experience was required. We commend her professionalism and loyalty to the school district and the city of Newark. Ms. Faith Fleming, Administrative Clerk. The Newark Public School Advisory Board salutes the 35 years of dedication service that Ms. Faith Fleming have fulfilled in her role as Administrative Clerk in the Instructional Technology Office in the Office of the Superintendent. We honor her service on this special occasion of her retirement. We commend her professionalism and loyalty to the school system and the city of Newark. I don't know how that one got before that. Miss Virginia Remsen. The Newark Public Schools Advisory Board salutes your 35 years of dedication and fulfilling her role as the editorial assistant in the Office of the Superintendent. We honor her service on this special occasion of her retirement. She faithfully coordinated every assignment in the same manner. We commend her professionalism, her unwavering commitment to the school system and the city of Newark. Give all three of them a hand.
Turn over to Vice Chair Barbara King for parent recognitions.
Thank you, Vice Chair, Dr. Janey, Advisory Board members, the Newark Central High School family, parents, good evening. But before I go on to recognize the parents, I think I would be remiss if I didn't just tell all three of the young ladies who are retiring that we're really going to miss you. I've known all of them for so many years through so many different superintendents, and I've worked with them, and I can honestly say their professionalism, the way they just carry themselves, their character, I mean, is the best, and I sincerely mean that. So best of luck. And of course, we're going to miss you. As we all know, that the first teacher is your parents. And we know that it is, if the parents are involved in the schools, that will be a tremendous help to our students' development. I just want to say that last night we had a parent engagement community relations meeting at 2 Cedar Street last night. And I really want to thank the PTA presidents, vice presidents, the parents, the parent liaison that came out, because that means the work they did last night shows what we're headed for in the future, that we must have our parents involved for the good. So I just want to thank all of you. I want to thank the committee that put it together because it was very successful, and I just want to thank you all. So, the Newark Public School Advisory Board Community Relations Committee wishes to recognize parents who are making a difference in the lives of our students as individuals and in our district as a whole. With approximately 40,000 students in the Newark Public Schools, there must be many, many exemplary parents. This parent recognition program, which began in 2004, will continue to shine the spotlight on those who support the district's 6-point parental involvement model, which consists of parenting, communicating, volunteering, learning at home, decision-making, and community involvement. We are pleased to recognize one parent from each region at each advisory board meeting this year. The parents were nominated by their children's principals. Tonight's Parent Recognition Award recipients are, from the East and Central Region, Deborah Jones from Central High School. From the South Region, Carrie Mum from Weekway High School. From the West Region, David Gaffney, Speedway Avenue School. And from the North Region, Kamales Wari, Bahi Tarun from First Avenue School. Congratulations to all of you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Vice Chair, and thank you very much to our parents for leading the way for their children and for all the children in the city of Newark. At this point, we shall move forward to the report of Dr. Janey.
Thank you, Chair Jeffries, Vice Chair King, and members of the board, parents, students, staff members, and the general public. I'd like to begin by sharing with you a very special acknowledgement of one of our many outstanding students. He coming from Eastside High School. And Eastside High School is one of several high schools that has a law academy. And this particular student participated in a competition depicting what the Law Academy by mission was supposed to be about. So he did a rendering through fine art and competed with over 1,000 students in the county. I'd like to have Dr. Mario Santos come forward and give some detail about the work that he did and the accomplishment he achieved. Dr. Santos? And I understand his teacher's not here this evening?
Yes. Ms. Zen is not here, but I will be presenting certainly talking about some of the accolades that Johnson has won. If I could just take a minute and have Johnson present some of his work that he's done besides the poster, because we had actually back in February at our faculty meeting, we acknowledged Johnson from some of the work, and at that meeting he told us that he was entering the contest, the law poster contest, and so of course we are today because he took first prize, but I'll let Johnson talk about some of his work.
First of all, I want to start with my portfolio. I have it right here, and if everybody can take a look at it. I know it's small, but you can still take a look at it. This one took first place my sophomore year last year for pitching for a beautiful Newark contest, and I took first and overall. I was the first and overall winner of the contest. Here, I have my second poster. It was also first place in the local level and he made it to state finals, and he got first place in the state contest too. And the award ceremony is gonna be next week, and the prize was a laptop, and it was a computer system, local and state level, first place. Here I have some of my work from my class. And again, everything in my portfolio is made by hand. Nothing's by computers, so it takes me a lot of time to finish it. And here I have the Law Day poster. It got first place in Essex County contest. They made flyers out of it. They put it on the cover of the calendar and on the month of May. That was first and overall winner.
And if I could, there were over 50 schools that entered the contest, and Johnson took first place. So big. Johnson is not just an artist. This is an all-around student. He is on the super honor roll. He's got a 3.5 GPA. He's also on the wrestling team, and he's also on the track team. So he's an athlete, he's an honor roll student, academics, and of course he's a great artist. So this is the pride of Newark, and we love him.
Dr. Santos, hold on one second. Since we have one of the jewels of Newark here, one of the many jewels of Newark, can you ask him, how does he come about thinking and creating ideas for his work? Where does he get his ideas, his drive, his energy? Could he share with us a little bit about that?
I get ideas as soon as I hear about the contest. They give me the theme. So I spend hours home and in school thinking about what to draw. And of course, it takes me more time to think about what to draw than to actually draw it. The drawing part is easy. That's not a problem, but thinking about the concept and what's going on the paper, that's what really takes time. And that's what I really think about before I draw something.
Thank you very much. And congratulations again.
Thank you.
Please, another round of applause for that young man. Amazing, absolutely amazing. We're actually going to go to a few votes and then come back afterwards to the rest of the superintendent's report. I'm going to exercise the prerogative as the chair to move the agenda around. I'd like to move up first the financial items that are on the agenda. And I think we need to go one by one because I know there's some questions on some of these, and also know with respect to the Section 125 premium plan, members of the board did not have information about that in their packet, so that I will need the district to explain some of that.
And you can move to as a group and then ask questions on
Okay, so that's a good, okay. I personally will start with number 6. I mean, maybe we can go down the list. And I just have a couple questions for the district regarding the fresh fruit and vegetable program, which is, you know, it sounds like a great program in terms of the 6 schools that have apparently been awarded a grant to provide our children fresh fruit and vegetables. The natural question I have, and I expect the community would have, is what about the other schools? By implication is, you know, what is our kind of vision, or what are we doing in terms of fresh fruits and vegetables on a district-wide basis to make sure our kids are receiving nutritious meals and that sort of thing?
Ms. Wilson?
Thanks, Dr. Janey. Good evening, Chair Jeffries, Dr. Janey, advisory board members. The district consistently looks to provide fresh fruits and vegetables across the district. So that's part of our menu system for the entire district. These schools were specifically selected by the Department of Agriculture for this grant. I think they're working on a special program, which is why they were selected. It was not that the district chose those schools specifically to do that. Okay? But there are fresh fruits and vegetables multiple times on our menu, and I'll be happy to provide copies of our menus.
Okay. That'll be important to me. Does anyone else have any other questions about that? Vice Chair? On number 7, I have a couple questions in terms of the lease agreements. I wasn't clear. Number 2, it says that we're entering into an agreement with the Port Authority for the lease of premises known as Aerospace Center. I just wasn't curious, what are we using that space for? Because that wasn't clear in the materials.
On that particular item, we have operated for several years an aerospace program, which is located out at the airport. As a matter of fact, that is one of the programs that we have cut this year. That lease does come due September of this year, and there is some movement we have to do to remove equipment and other things. There's actually, I think, a flight simulator, wind tunnel instrumentation, all of those things that children have done as part of the transportation program. Okay. And we've had that program in place for several years, serviced a number of students, but unfortunately with our budget cuts, that program was cut. This item is here in the event that we are unable to finish what we need to do before September, as a sort of fail-safe. Okay. But it is our intent to close that lease and close that facility. Okay. It is actually a hangar at Kennedy Airport. Okay, that's great. And number 3, Ms. Wilson, the premises at 168 Elizabeth, for what purpose are we using that space? Brantley Brothers is a warehouse storage facility that we were hoping to close this year. Unfortunately, we are finding that some of our facilities from which we are moving, the old Central High School where we're closing out this month, some of the other facilities, Banneker Science Center, there is an overflow of furniture, equipment, and other articles that we will need to store until we can get rid of them. So it is possible I may have to extend Brantley for another year. But it's purely warehouse storage space used to store excess equipment, excess furniture. If we have books, as you know, our schools are limited in the amount of storage space that is available.
How about, Ms. Wilson, the Immaculate Conception Church, number 5? What's the purpose for that rental?
I know you were going to ask that one. That's the one I'm not quite sure on. I'll have to look that one up, Mr. Jeffries.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I'd appreciate that.
Mr. Morlino, can you help me with that? Okay, is that St. Lucy's? Okay. At McKinley School, thanks, Steve. At McKinley School, we have an overflow of the number of students that are there. As you know, we're significantly overcrowded in the North Ward. I know it as St. Lucy's, I'm sorry.
Great, thank you. So that's for use for student space for the overflow?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
The primary grades, I think.
Is that also the case with number 6, the Lady of Good Counsel Church?
Our Lady of Good Counsel is not really overflow. It is actually one of the 3 replacement sites for the Elliott Street School that went offline in 2006. Okay. As you know, that school was struck by lightning, caught on fire, and is as a matter of fact, it's been demolished. Right.
And I have the same question for the rest of those, Ms. Wood, because it wasn't clear. Because I just feel before I vote on the expenditure of these funds, I'd like to know what the space will be used for. So would you mind just summarizing 7 through 12, how we're going to use that space, please?
St. Anthony's, 7 I don't have an answer for. St. Anthony's is also, St. Anthony's 6, 8. Okay. Our Lady of Good Counsel, which is number 6, and St. Anthony's are replacements for Elliott. St. Benedict's is known as the Ann Street Annex, thanks. St. James is Lafayette School's Annex. Immaculate Conception is in St. Lucy's, because St. Lucy's is on here, which is considered McKinley's. Sports Club Portuguese, I'm not sure. Lafayette also. We have 2 annexes at Lafayette. And United Community is, I think, a gymnasium space that we rent because it's the West Side Community Park Center.
Great, thank you.
Does that cover them?
That's perfect. It says Belmont is, all of that is flow for children, overflow space.
Yes, except for, actually, 2 and 3 are, and 4 is our central office. So 2, 3, and 4 are basically office space or storage.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay.
Any other board members have a question on number 7? Mr. Lamort?
I have a question on the UMD&J number 10.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I have a question.
Is your mic on, Mr. Lamort?
Say again?
Is your mic?
Yeah,
Oh, it
it's
is,
on,
I'm sorry.
Right. I have a question on 10, the UMD&J Professional Development Grant. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Item 10?
Item 10.
Okay.
It's not number 10 on there.
Okay, hold on, let me get that one for you.
It's actually 24 on
Does
this
anybody have the item?
form.
Okay. That is professional development. It is funded by grant funds, and it's professional services, if I'm not mistaken. Usually, we use it for psychologists, people of that nature to support some of our special needs population. So it's considered the purchase of professional services for mental health services, so that would include counseling, things of that nature, if we have to go above and beyond what is available in the district. As you know, those are hard-to-fill positions, and we have to supplement what we have in district with contractors. So we do it that way.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
I think we need a quick summary on the Section 125 because I didn't have anything in my materials on that. I assume the other board members didn't. So before the board votes, I think it's important for them to get at least a general sense of what that's about.
Okay. Earlier this year, the governor put in place what he called pensions. Are you having a problem hearing me? Is this the 125?
Number 8 in the finance packet, the Section 125.
Okay. Earlier this year, the governor put in place some pension reforms associated with reducing costs in the areas for school districts. One of the areas that has had significant discussion is the cost of health care benefits. And employees who participate, actually public employees who participate in both the state health benefits plan and the school employees health benefits plan, do not contribute to their health care costs. Sometime in March, the governor put in place, suggested to the legislature, and it was voted upon and accepted into law, that school employees and public employees would begin to contribute to the cost of their health care. That contribution would take the form of a 1.5% deduction from salaries to offset premium costs for the district. With that, it is necessary for the district to put in place what is called a cafeteria plan. People who work in corporate may be familiar with a cafeteria plan, which allows for flexible spending, allows for you to select what kind of benefits you're going to get. You sort of customize your benefits. School districts and public entities are not at that point in time, but they are required legally and from the IRS to put in place what is called a 125 plan, which is basically the housing, as it were, for the ability to deduct from employees' salaries. The law in March indicated that that deduction should begin the first payroll after May 21st, which would have been June 11th. The district requested and received a waiver from the county, which allows us to begin the deductions beginning July 1st and retroactively back to that June 11th date. So there will be notifications. You have to sort of talk about how you're going to notify employees, what kind of information you're going to share with them. This particular plan that we are putting in place now allows only for the deduction of the 1.5% of salaries to offset benefits. And at some future time, you could expand the plan, which we would again have to come before the board to talk about flexible spending, to talk about other kinds of health benefits incentives that we may offer. This plan being put in place also allows the district to offer the employees the ability to have this deduction done pre-tax, which provides tax benefits to the individual employees. Council, is there anything I've missed?
No.
Any questions from the board on the Section 125 plan? I had a quick question on number 9, the financing arrangement for an amount that can be as high as $32 million and entering into an agreement with a local bank. To what extent can we prioritize Newark-based banks in that process?
We actually reached out to 3 banks, and I don't have their name right now. We are dealing with Bank of America for this particular loan. We do try to work with Newark-based banks when possible. Right. We maintain an account with City National, and we'll continue to maintain that. They may not have the breadth and depth to deal with some of the major issues that we have, and can also not necessarily be competitive on our banking services rates we receive. But we did try to reach out, and we've selected Bank of America because it offers the best rate for the district. And as you know, for the last 3 to 4 years, the state has not given school districts their last 2 state aid payments in June. So normally, districts are not required, may have to borrow for both the first payment in June and the second. We, through management of funds, are able to not borrow the first payment, but we must borrow the second to maintain positive cash flow and to meet payroll.
And that's because the state isn't upholding its obligations to pay us on time as it ought to.
They have deferred their payments for June, and we do not get them until July.
Right. Next set of question I have is on the $900,000 regarding the Gateway to College program. I just wasn't clear from the materials what it is we're paying for with that.
I can't hear you clearly because...
The P1, the approval for the expenditure of $900,000 for the Gateway to College program at Essex County. It wasn't clear in the materials precisely what it is we're paying for with that.
I think that's one of our alternative ed programs that we are offering. Dan?
Good evening, Superintendent, Advisory Board members. Gateway to College is one of the 4 components of the Alternative High School Initiative that was entered into approximately a year and a half ago. We do have a contract with them where Newark Public School students stay enrolled, and for a flat rate, they attend programs at Essex County College as Newark Public School students to complete their high school diploma. This is primarily an electronic, web-based exchange with side instruction provided by Essex County College personnel. It allows for flexible enrollment for students and provides an alternative path for those students for whom attendance at a comprehensive or magnet high school may not be the best route for graduation.
Mr. Gold, is there any data on effectiveness of the money we've already spent on this program?
This is the first full year of implementation, so at the end of this year we will have, and I've been working with Assistant Dean Phil Infante from Essex to track the graduation rates. The preliminary data based on first semester was very positive because students do have the ability to graduate at mid-year. at the midpoint of the year at the January graduation date.
Yeah, I did.
Could you back up a little bit from the mic because we're getting a bit of reverberation, excuse me.
Certainly. So what I was saying is that we did have some preliminary data from first semester that leads us to be very hopeful because students do have the ability to complete their graduation requirements as they complete the coursework. We will have a report for the August board meeting on the first full year of implementation.
So before it's time to revisit this contract next year, we should have a predicate of data from which to make a decision about whether or not we should renew going into 11-12.
Absolutely.
Okay. Is that the same as well for the Diploma Plus program?
The Diploma Plus contract is for the growth as opposed to the Essex County contract, which is for the maintenance. What we do have with Diploma Plus as well as Big Picture are two other alternative route programs for students to complete. We have programs at 4 schools between those two programs that are providing project-based paths for students to graduate. Seat time coupled with projects, exams, is not always the best route for students, and by using project-based assessments, both Diploma Plus and Big Picture give alternative routes to our students. In fact, I will say that we have a very successful Big Picture program here at Central High School.
Okay, thank you. Last question I have on any of this is a broader question about to what extent can we develop in-district capacity in terms of professional development, because we have a handful of contracts here, I guess, which total around $2 million for outsourced professional development. And so I just have a question about what's our kind of broader vision to develop an in-house capacity so we can obviously try to keep as many of those dollars in-house. And then when do we, what's our vision for when we feel we need to look outside of what we have internally to outsource professional development services?
Yeah, I'll begin and I'll have Ms. White join me. We actually do tap on we actually do rely upon and seek out expertise from within the district. We hold a middle grades conference every year. We do such work at the earlier entry points, 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds. We tap on the talent of our district, but in certain situations we go outside to supplement that which we do internally. And I'm going to have Ms. White just give some examples of what we externally rely upon to supplement what we do internally.
Thank you, Dr. Janey, and good evening, board members and board chairperson. As Dr. Janey said, we do use internally train-the-trainer models for professional development, but in cases or instances where we use outside expertise is to, for example, utilize current best thinking and best practices around, for example, instructional leadership, where we work with our principals around current best practices and thinking around how to be better instructional leaders, and then to implement those thinking and what does it look like on a daily basis. Also, as we systemically look at our practices, we have to have a systemic language in which to do so. And so what we are embarking is, as we look at, again, daily what happens in the schools, what is our language for what we look for? And so those kinds of approaches are then brought to us by outside thinkers and practitioners, and looking at what is best practices, bring them to us. We are then given the information for us to then turnkey it so that it hits the ground where it's actually applied, and that's in the classroom.
Mr. Lewis.
I need clarity on P13 and on the P16. P18 and P19.
Sorry. P13 relates to milk and milk products for the district, for the food services program. As you can see, that contract will run from September 1st, 2010 to August 31st, 2011. The National School Lunch and Breakfast Program require that 8 ounces of fluid milk is served at both breakfast and lunch. And if we do after-school meals, there's another 8 fluid ounces of milk served there. P16 is for moving services associated with fixed assets. As I indicated earlier, we are moving several of our locations and relocating those services. The district does not have moving services or laborers available to support that effort, so we have to go out for contracts. We've closed up the old Central, and there was some residual stuff left there. We are closing up Banneker Science Center, and we will also be moving the old Speedway into new Speedway in time for September, and that is a major move.
So is P16, that contract is also along with P12 as well, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we usually use Brantley Brothers. The P16 contract is a supplement of what we normally use.
Okay. And also P18 and P19.
Okay.
Do we know when we'll know the actual numbers?
As a matter of fact, that brings me to the additional items that I placed on your packet this evening. There were 3 or 4 action items that were held together by a paper clip. They were right on top of your packet when you came in. You will see that portion control shows you vendors A through G, the number of items they have, well, not the number of items, but the value of the items. Those are predominantly our pre-portioned, frozen, pre-cooked items that will be used on the menu in the district. P19 is associated with bread and rolls. Once again, there is a meal pattern that must be followed for our meals to meet standard and to meet the appropriate nutritional criteria as determined by the National School Lunch Program. And there are 2 additional items associated with custodial paper and supplies. And they too indicate the detail that was missing at the time. June is a short month for us, and it is difficult for us to get all the items in time to meet this adjusted schedule. We've actually lost 2 weeks off our schedule. Were there any other items that I missed, Mr. Lewis?
And on P21 about the cold mills purchase?
P21, I think, is associated with our summer feeding program. Based on the loss of staff through budget cuts and reductions, the food service area has lost over probably about 35 people as it relates to civil service. There's some adjustments that need to be made in menus, and in order to staff the schools, we are finding that there is difficulty in staffing. Where we have philosophically supported a hot and cold meal for the summer, this summer we will be offering cold, and that is a prepackaged cold meal, which allows you to reduce your labor.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Vice Chair.
Ms. Wilson, did I understand you correctly? You saying P16 is a supplement of P12?
Supplement meaning that there are additional moving services. P12 was for Brantley Brothers.
Right.
That's normally who we'd use, and what we do with them is usually sufficient based on the volume that we need to move this year with regards to relocating staff. We're relocating several departments also with the reductions because we're consolidating spaces. There's a warehouse operation in the facilities area that will be moving. There's New Speedway, there's Banneker. There are a couple of places that we will be moving as it relates to not just furniture, equipment. There may be textbooks that need to be moved, textbooks that need to be disposed of, various other items. So when I say supplement, it means in addition to Brantley Brothers. Mm-hmm.
But Brantley is what we normally use.
Yes, ma'am.
Wow.
Mr. Lewis.
I'm looking at F1, the increase from 39,000 on the Newark School Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
And why was it? Well, can you tell us the reason why it was an increase?
The increase, this is a change order request, and F1 designates a facility item, general construction as it relates to Newark School Stadium and the community building. As we prepare the site for construction, as you know, Newark has a history of sites that may have material that you may not have anticipated when you first went on the site. So this indicates that when they began to get, they have to remove existing power lines that are too close to the new building's footprint. They've got to relocate them across the street, and the removal of concrete footings. We've got to strip topsoil, all of those things come in. We do make borings, we do make estimations when we go in for a construction project, but it is possible in certain areas of the city to find material that may have been dumped. I do know that at the school stadium site, there are several things that you'd be surprised what we find. Old tires and things of that nature that are just built upon over the years and were forced into the ground. But as you now excavate and decide to build a new facility, you've got to thoroughly clean that because the code requires that you make sure that everything is removed.
So it's because of the oldness of the building. They had a lot of additional repairs to do?
It's not repairs, it's removal of, it's relocation of power lines, and it is removal of debris and material, concrete footings, things of that nature that need to be removed before proper construction can begin on that site. That's a, $19 million project. You're talking 39,000, so you need to look at it in its scopes in those terms.
That's a big jump.
Yes, Mr. Jeffries.
Ms. Wilson, can you just say a very quick word about our process for approving change orders? The history of construction projects is replete with projects going way over budget. And obviously the way in which they become over budget is usually through the change orders. Many of us may remember the NJPAC, which because of too many change orders was way out of budget. So my question is, what's our process for approving change orders?
Mr. Morlino, would you like to join me at the mic?
Thank you.
As Mr. Molina is coming down, we do have a process through which change orders go. Contractors submit their requests, they are reviewed, they are estimated, they are verified before anything is approved. Steve, would you like to explain that?
Yeah, good evening. On a project like this, we have a built-in contingency that ranges from 10 to 20%. Contingency is built in for unforeseen and unanticipated issues, such as historic fill, foundations that are found that couldn't be found in the borings. When you do borings on a site like that, you take a representative sample, and do the borings. These were unanticipated things. As far as actual change orders for the district managed projects, which are much different than the SDA projects, which are millions of dollars over, the district managed projects, internal policies are up to $5,000 is adjusted by the design and construction staff. When it goes from $5,000 to $25,000, it comes to the executive director's level. Anything above $50,000 is a committee that meets along with the SBA and makes a determination that that's an appropriate expenditure. So there are checks and balances in place on any district managed project or district funded project.
This is the first change order for this project?
On this particular project, yes.
Mr. Lewis?
I wanted to ask you, Mr. Chair, can we vote on the items, not as a package, but item by item, because there's some items that I have concerns where I need additional information, and I don't want to vote on tonight.
Oh, Mr. Lewis, is your mic on, Mr. Lewis?
It's on.
Okay. What's
in the mic?
Okay now, Ms. Rimpson? So if you can just make sure you speak into the mic, Mr. Lewis. Ms. Rimpson is not picking up everything.
Okay, I just want to, instead of voting on the items as a package, can we vote individually on each item? Thank you.
Mr. Lewis, it may be quicker. Can you tell us the specific numbers that you'd like to pull out, and then we can maybe vote on the rest of them?
Okay. Particular F1, that's the one I had concern with, F1.
F1, okay.
That's the one I just don't want to vote on.
The rest of them, you're okay?
Yeah.
Do we have a motion to vote on these items as a package except for F1? Do we have a second? Do we have a second, Mr. Lamort?
Do we have a second?
We do, Mr. Lamort.
Mr. Jeffries?
Yes.
Ms. King? Yes. Mr. Lamore?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Ms. Pintor?
Yes.
Ms. Davis-Spade? Oh, gone.
Do we have a motion to vote on F1?
Motion to vote on?
To vote on F1, because we voted on everything other than F1. But now do we have a motion to vote on F1?
Yes.
Okay, a second. Ms. Pintor?
Mr. Jeffries?
Yes.
Ms. King? Yes. Mr. Lamore?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Abstain.
Ms. Pintor?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Ms. Wilson, Mr. Merlino, Dr. Janey, for responding to those questions. We'll pick back up with the rest of the superintendent's report.
Do you want to just do educational services?
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I thought we voted on, we just voted on the financial piece
Yeah, you have one.
package? Okay. Does any board member have any questions about the package of in-state and out-of-state student field trips? Do we have a motion?
Yes.
Second? Mr. Lewis?
Mr. Jeffries?
Yes.
Ms. King? Yes. Mr. Lamore? Yes. Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Ms. Pintor?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We'll pick back up with the rest of the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Jeffries. We're going to go into some presentations now. I'm going to ask Mr. Gold to begin with an update on the school improvement grants.
Good evening again, Superintendent, Advisory Board, Chair, board members, community. Earlier this spring, Newark Public Schools submitted 10 school improvement grants as part of a state process. Those grants were due on April 30th. We did submit all 10 grants that we were eligible to submit for the competitive granting process, and at that time, we were advertised by the state as June 14th to be the date upon which we would receive a response. Yesterday, eagerly, we called the state, did so again today. We now are led to believe that we will have a response tomorrow. As soon as we have a response from the New Jersey Department of Education Office of Grants, we will be posting the award announcements, which we are very hopeful for, to the district's website. We will also be informing the advisory board directly of what the designation of each grant application has been determined to be. And we will be then beginning a process of informing each school community, initially through the principal and then through community meetings, of what the response from the state has been. We have already engaged the staff at each community that the work that was put in by the administration and community for the direction of school reform is the direction we will be moving. Obviously, the resources that would be made available by a successful grant award would allow us to change the pace and would also come with a whole series of state, federal regulations about what and how we were to proceed. I had hoped to come tonight with 10 responses. Unfortunately, I do not have that.
Any questions from the board about the status of the SIG applications? Okay, so I guess we'll find out shortly, hopefully tomorrow. Thank you, Mr. Gold.
Thank you.
Would Mr. Leone come forward, please? Your presentation's in 3 parts. Alternative high school student. Also, you're going to bridge the gap from what we had to do in the budget in terms of student assistant coordinators. And thirdly, you're going to address the board and the public about promotion, retention, and grading. You can take them in any order based on your visual presentation. I think he's got it.
In his order.
Mr. Superintendent, in your order, an update on ASA, then we will do the update on SACs, and then the 3 new policies.
Mr. Leone, and to General Counsel, one of the policies need not be voted on this evening, and that's retention. We're presenting it to the board for their information, and we can come back and engage and have a vote on that at the beginning of the school year. Is that correct?
Right. And actually, most of what, or virtually all of what Mr. Leone is saying is actually embraced within our current policies. So if we do choose to amend our board policies regarding these topics, it will be because we want to be more specific for the public.
When we get to the last part of that presentation, we'll entertain questions and then be able to have the board look at those conversations that have taken place accordingly. We're okay, Ms. Remsen? Ms. Remsen, we're okay? Mr. Superintendent, Mr. President, members of the advisory board, and to everyone that's in the audience. The first part of the presentation is an update on the status of the alternative high school assessment appeals. I take this opportunity to remind everyone that there is a historical timeline for the class of 2010, our current seniors that are in our high schools. During March of their junior year, the administration of the high school proficiency assessment took place. They had 3 opportunities to sit for and pass the high school proficiency assessment. The second opportunity was in October of this school year, then again in this March. The state moved from the SRA process, which ended during the course of this summer, the summer of 2009, and created these first and second windows. The first window occurring in January, the second window occurring in April, and then now a final window occurring in the summer of 2010. We are very well aware that there has been a moving appeals process since the start of a community meeting that was held not only by the superintendent here in the district, but by the Secondary Parent Council, in which the Deputy Commissioner of the New Jersey Department of Education did represent the commissioner here in the city of Newark. That moving appeals process changed from May 18th all the way through the 3rd of June, and here are the updates as per the request of the president of the advisory board is currently on the district's web. There are 248 students that did not pass the high school proficiency assessment, as well as its alternative high school assessment. We have submitted 116 appeals to the New Jersey Department of Education as of this past Friday. There were 119 students that we did not submit appeals for, as they did not meet the threshold that was established by the Deputy Commissioner. There are 10 students that, for whatever reasons, and they have a number of them, are disenfranchised to a certain extent and are not attending school, so that there wasn't justification to submit those appeals. And then there are 3 students that are actually going into the workplace and continuing on with their studies in school, as well as seeking their high school diploma, is not the priority that is before them.
Mr. Leon, do you know the number of students who were granted their diploma through the automatic appeal? I think it's in that May 21st or 27th Spicer memo, either 400 verbal, 400 math. They passed the AccuPlacer. I know there's a piece about the military exam. Do you have that number?
Yeah,
Mr.
there was what the president is referring to is the automatic appeals process. Student needed to score a 400, for example, on the SATs in the areas of mathematics or language, demonstrating proficiency, and automatically those students were submitted for appeal. Another category was scoring a 16 on the ACTs. That score on the achievement demonstrates a level of proficiency. Scoring on the AccuPlacer is another means of demonstrating proficiency in the areas of language, arts, literacy, or mathematics. We have a total of 6 students that actually qualified for the automatic appeals. It's important to note that through the work that the district is doing and Essex County College on Thursday of this week, we are actually Essex County College is actually hosting the administration of the AccuPlacer for all of the students that have not completed or demonstrated proficiency on the alternative high school assessment. All of those students are scheduled to sit this Thursday yesterday and today, Essex County College provided opportunities to provide some questions and answers to students, almost like a test prep in preparation for the sitting that will occur on this Thursday.
Mr. Leon, a couple questions on that. Do we know how many kids are signed up to take the AccuPlacer on Thursday?
Do we know the number?
Yeah, or ballpark?
Say it again. Mr. Kopaz has that answer?
Mr. Kopaz, Office of Innovation and Change. Currently, we have 165 students enrolled to take the test Thursday. The bulk, I believe, 140 are scheduled for language. And the rest is for math, but there is a combination of language and math. But right now, we have 165 students.
And sir, or Mr. Leon, so that would include both the kids for whom we've submitted appeal and some number of kids out of that 119 for whom we didn't. Okay. Would you happen to have a sense of what that breakdown is of the? I know that's very specific, so if that's too specific, let me know. That's way too specific. But I would be interested to know the distribution of that 165. How many of that 165 are among the 119 that were sent to Trenton for an appeal? How many were not?
We'll be able to provide you with that answer.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
There are 23, just on the same wavelength of your questioning, there are 23 students that qualify for the single item retest. There are 23 students that have not passed one standard of the area of mathematics, and that is necessary for them to actually earn their diploma. So those students on the 7th of this month, the schools submitted to New Jersey Department of Education the request to have PATs sent to each respective school. Students are being administered these individual tests, and we are required to fax them back to New Jersey Department of Education so that they can actually score them. So there are, in addition to all of that, there are 23 students that will be sitting for this June window, which was not provided at all prior to superintendent's hosting of the Department of Education here in our city.
And that's math. That's for the math section, right, Mr. Leon?
Sorry, sir?
That's for the math section, right, Mr. Leon?
The math section is the area of mathematics has 4 standards that the student has to demonstrate proficiency in. It's quite different, the scoring that occurs there. So the New Jersey Department of Education decided that if a student did not meet only one standard in the area of mathematics, there was enough time during the month of June to afford that student the opportunity to sit for a 6th time. Also keep in mind that any of the students that do not meet the graduation requirements, that being 110 credits and demonstrating proficiency on a state assessment, those students are scheduled to sit for the summer window that begins on the 6th of July through the 6th of August.
Mr. Leon, I know folks will definitely want to have a sense of what standards did we use in terms of deciding that 119 kids were not worthy of having an appeal submitted, because I know the standard required us to have evidence of proficiency, so I'm going to assume we didn't feel we had evidence of proficiency for those 119, but I think it'd be important if you could flesh that out.
Yeah, the majority of the students that are in that 119 range had other factors beyond not demonstrating proficiency on the tests. The majority of those students had multiple factors. Their common bond was not necessarily having 110 credits in order to even qualify for their ability to take the test. Those students will obviously have to go to summer school to recover credit for those courses. That, in our review of that information, that was the common thread of the 119 students. In order to get a high school diploma in this state, you must do 2 things. You must earn 110 credits and demonstrate proficiency on the state test. In our city, you must do those 2 things plus 60 hours of community service. The majority of the students that were in that 119 range were suffering from credit deficiencies.
So those kids, they'll have to take summer classes and then go take the ASA during the summer window?
They will be required to do both, yes, sir.
Last question I had is about the 3 kids. I mean, it's a small number, but I'd still like to know, just what is that? So if a kid is entering the workplace, that kid needs a diploma even more. So I'm just curious, how are they exempted?
I haven't spoken with those 3 students. Dr. Santos isn't here. They are from Eastside High School. And those 3 students, we know all 204 of them, 48 of them, I actually have their names here by school, so I know who they are. Right. Those 3 young men, I don't know who they are. All I know is that they are going to work, and they don't need the diploma to do that.
Is there any way we can persuade them to, is there any way we can persuade them that even if they have a job now, it's very unlikely they're going to get a job tomorrow if they don't get a high school diploma and beyond? I mean, is there any way we can talk to them and say, get your butt in here so we can get you the ASA?
Most definitely.
Thank you, sir. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Long. We'll follow up on that.
Substance abuse coordinators, are we ready to go there, or are there any questions on this issue?
Any board members have any questions for Mr. Leon about ASA? Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Leon.
I just want to make sure that we're all clear, because not that I need to do this, but my record is very, very clear. The demands that we have on all of the students is the same. This is the reporting of factual information as we had it as of Friday of last week. The 3 students who are entering the workforce, that is a choice that they are making. It is incumbent upon us to make sure that they are clear as to what the expectations are of the district. But it's everyone in this audience, as well as beyond here, who need to be very, very clear that if those students do not continue in their school, that those students are making that choice. And my record is clear on that. Substance abuse coordinators. Mr. Superintendent, Sharon Oros, who's joining me, as well as Dr. Marguerite Loisy. On one hand, we have the supervisor who has actually presented through discourse, and passionately so, an issue that was raised at the last advisory board meeting. And we also have Dr. Loisy, the director of our nurses. And they can flank me. Part of what was on our plate was to strategize, given the realities that we are facing with regards to these economic decisions and crisis that we're in the state and in particular in the district, and then respond to choices that we have made with regards to staffing. In Title 6A 9-13-2, the Substance Abuse Coordinator's endorsement authorizes the holder to perform the function of a substance awareness coordinator in grades preschool through 12, and that position of SAC shall be separate and distinct from any other employment position on the school. In 16-4.1, the assessments made by this individual, who holds the Educational Services Certificate with the SAC endorsement issued by the New Jersey Board of Examiners, or by an individual who holds one of the following endorsements on the ESCs, school nurse non-instructional, the school psychologist, the school counselor, the school social worker, or student personnel services, and is trained to assess alcohol and other drug abuse. We have 3 other positions that Dr. Loisy will walk you through that being the school nurse, the school counselor, and the school social worker that are integral in providing the necessary assistance and support. That will move us to, in part, the recommendation that after a long conversation, and I must share with you, very impressed was I with Sharon and her insight as to how and what we would need to do to remedy the realities of our economic reality today. So Dr. Loisy will walk you through what staff members we have in our respective schools as of September 1 that will provide assistance and support, and what we will need to do to ready them. And then the strategy that we will then bring in at the end with how the regions need the support and how that support manifests itself not only on a macro level, but on a micro level. Dr. Loisy.
Good evening, Mr. Superintendent, Mr. Jeffries, the advisory board, and the guests. That's the general definition of a school nurse. The important part to this is that they promote health and safety, they intervene with actual and potential health problems, and they are involved with case management. The school nurse has always been involved with substance abuse awareness. When a student is suspected of being under the influence, the student is referred to the school nurse. The school nurse assesses the vital signs, calls the parent, and arranges for the child to go see a healthcare practitioner for an evaluation and lab work. The note from that assessment comes back to the school nurse, who either allows the student back in as they have a negative report, or they refer them on for more support if the report is positive. However, in this transition, there are certain certified documents that the substance awareness coordinators have that will be given to the school nurses to maintain in their A45 records, which is the state record of health. Under the state records, the nurses are required to follow the FERPA laws, the Federal Education Rights and Privacy Act. The nurses are fully aware of what information cannot be distributed to any other person. And they are involved with the follow-up and referral within the school. The school counselor also has a role in this. They're all part of the intervention and referral services and the DRC. They've all been involved in this for years. The nurses certainly take a very active role along with the school counselors and the social worker. Under the school counselor, their important roles are that they work on defeating, frustrating, and hindering students' problems with academic success. They provide leadership, and they work to ensure academic success. As part of this, they've always been on the team that has worked with the students. Most of them are very active with the students, and those who are not will become more active in the process. The social workers. This is, again, the general definition of a social worker for a school, and they provide the support to enhance the child's academic success, and within that they must work on social and emotional issues. They, again, are part of the intervention and referral system. They've always worked with the substance abuse coordinators, substance awareness coordinators, and it is not a new role for the social workers. In August and September, the school nurse, the school counselors, and the social worker will receive additional training to redefine and add to their scope of practice. The district floor plan has added school counselors and social workers. There will be 9 additional school counselors, which means that there will be 1 for each school. There will be 4 additional social workers, which indicates there will be 1 for each school. So there will be the personnel, and there is at least 1 nurse in every school. So there will be 3 members who will be able to work on the INRS DRC team. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to speak to the difficulty, obviously, in these economic times and the challenge we face in this area I think that at some level we need to make sure that we preserve clearly the substance abuse intervention services to students and families, and also to protect the district in terms of compliance of the administrative code around alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs. I believe the plan that we're about to talk about is feasible, certainly not optimal, but it is one in which we institute a model where we take advantage of the coordinator portion of what is the student assistance coordinator. And I know you hear these terms back and forth. The actual certificate is substance awareness coordinator, but districts are allowed to call that position what they like, and student assistance coordinator is much less, it doesn't have the stigma that substance awareness or substance abuse coordinator does, so many districts choose to go that route. The proposal that I want to talk about is one that is focused on the regions. We're talking about a regionally based student assistance coordinator model, and that would focus on the strength of the SAC as a coordinator. And in addition to that, the SAC would be working both at a micro level and a macro level to assist the district. Now, obviously, we're talking about going from a cadre of 40 folks to looking at another model that minimizes those numbers, but yet gives us what it is that we need to meet the goal of substance abuse services in the district and also respond to administrative code. What I see happening here is that the regional SAC is one that is not so much a direct services person, but becomes more of a coordinator within the district and aligns, as you see, at the macro level with the regions. That is the district level. The macro level is the district level, in which they provide coaching and consultation and direction around the code and how it needs to be implemented at the regional level. Now, there is a premise for this type of model, and it comes from the U.S. Department of Education. And the U.S. Department of Education has called this a best practice because they have implemented a number of programs over the year called the School Safety Drug Prevention Coordinator Model. And what that is that it's about taking a coordinator and having that coordinator pull together what needs to be pulled together so that it gets done. Very often what happens is that without a coordinator, sometimes things fall apart. You know, in districts it's hard to get things done sometimes, but when you have someone at the hub, that really helps. And so this is a best practice that is supported by the U.S. Department of Ed. It is also a practice that we have utilized in this district already. In 2005, we were a recipient of the Safe Schools, Healthy Students federal grant, which enabled us to design a program that actually used what we call district SACs and building SACs simultaneously, and it was the model I just mentioned to you. So this is something that has been done already and is being done across the country in various ways. I also want to just make mention that there is another model out there that is significant to schools, and that has to do with, it comes out of UCLA, California, and it's about the over-specialization that happens in schools and the demarcations around different job titles. You know, Dr. Loisy just talked about social workers versus school counselors versus whoever, and we all kind of come with our own repertoire of things. And what UCLA says is that we need to do a little bit more blending. We need to integrate what we do. We need to be able to cross those lines a little bit more and not stay so much in our own place. And I believe this model is one that supports that kind of a theory, you know, in terms of concept. So what exactly would a regional SAC do at the macro level is that the SAC would be available to work with the regional administration and give them the understanding they need around the administrative code with alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs, and also assist them in the alignment of making sure that community resources and partnerships are developed, and that what can happen there is that we would have memorandums of agreement in order to bring the two pieces together. In this district, that has been a challenge for us. What we have often heard both from the external resources and our internal departments is that sometimes it's difficult to navigate to each other. And so as a result, the key role of a SAC at that macro level would be to be that person who makes sure that those doors get open. And that precedent has already been set within the SAC department in the Office of Safe and Drug-Free Schools with the Safe Schools Healthy Students grant that we just finished up this past year. Now, in addition to that, I see that there is a need at that macro level for the SAC to focus on the implementation of curriculum at the building level, but with the regional administrators at the helm. As you know, an important part of the code is about prevention, education, and then intervention as well. So those are important pieces of what needs to get done to make this work. At the macro level, what we see the SAC involved in is directly involved with folks, student support staff at the building level to begin to build capacity with the folks that are there so that we aren't all in separate locations, but we are working together. And as we were looking at the code before, the words around that other disciplines can do the function, but what they do say in the code is that it shall be that those folks must be trained in alcohol and other drug evaluation, referral for treatment, and other parts of what is important to that role. So we need someone in the district to be able to impart that to the folks, and it's not just about imparting it, but it's about making sure that it moves forward and it happens, and that there are people there to assist in that. In addition to that, I see those SACs coaching, our intervention and referral services teams and our drug prevention review committees, which have been in the district. INRS is part of code. And also to assist with the issues around students under the influence. And if there were any principals here who wanted to speak up, I imagine they will tell you the difficulty that it creates when children in the buildings are thought to be under the influence. In most cases, it happens in a school day, it happens at a school event, it happens on a school trip. And very often, there are specific things that need to be done, and no matter how long an administrator is at the helm, I will tell you from my 25 years of experience, they still need someone to walk them through what is a very important process that is very clearly delineated in code. I also just want to say that one more thing, that in this model, we're really looking for there to be that focus on also the policy and procedures and how it is that we disseminate information among the buildings, because part of code is also that we, on a yearly basis, train staff and students in information about substances, and also we have to also send home copies of policy and so forth. And those kinds of things trip us up when it comes to QSAC. So we need a process that takes us in a direction. I believe this regional SAC model is a way for us to do what we need to do and to really build capacity within our buildings. Any questions I can entertain?
Mr. Lamort?
Thank you. So if I understand the model correctly, there'll be the assessment. If the student's identified, the idea is that the school council will be able to do the biopsychosocial assessment and then refer out or treat in.
Well, I think it's a combination of both. Is very often we want to send students out, and very often we do, but remember that they do come back as well. So there's a combination happening at the same time. Also, while you're motivating students to move toward getting help, and these are not the ones who are under the influence at the moment, these are the voluntary ones that we know have a problem, we will have to provide in-school services as well, and the SAC is the person that can help build that model at the school level.
So the SAC will provide, or according to this model, the school counselor or the social worker?
Yes,
will
build
provide
capacity with the folks that are within the building to do those services, because at this point, I would say, I don't know how many, but most of them are probably not trained to do that.
So most of them aren't trained to do it?
Aren't.
But we're going to train them?
Right. That would be part of the regional model.
And we're going to train them by September?
Well, soon. I don't know if we can train them by September, but I think that the model would be to do that as soon as possible.
Okay, how? How's this training going to take place?
Well, I think that my sense is that at the beginning of the school year, we need to use the time that we have with those folks to get them on board and develop this integrative model that needs to move forward. That model's already begun in some ways through student support services, but I think that the beginning of the school year is where we really need to do that and really get folks on board.
And I guess I'm a little confused.
Okay.
So the school counselor, whose job is not only now to address the academic needs of the student, will also address whatever other needs the student has. That's the screener?
Right.
Is that too much for the school counselor?
Part of what the regional-based model will allow the expertise that exists to be a resource at each of the respective regions. Every single person, a student does not go to the hospital from the school by way of anybody except the nurse. The nurse is the only official person in this state that allows and has the authority to provide for a student to actually go into a hospital.
Right.
A principal can't do it. No one else on the staff can do it. The nurse is the only person. So that the nurse plays a role with these very, very good people that have been working extremely hard and providing an incredible service to our students. What must occur is that the school counselors, who should know if a student is suffering from any use of any substance, and if they don't, shame on them as it relates to not knowing things about their students. Part of the training that will occur at the start of the year, as we provide training for everyone in the district, would be to, go over certain procedures with the nurses, do the exact same thing with the social worker and the school counselor as we move forward into the school year, knowing that we're needing to provide training to everyone on a number of things. We have Naviance in our school. We need to think about what colleges students are going to help them complete applications, things of that nature, a myriad of things, including this.
And the idea now is not to use this, like the school psychologist in that model.
Oh, the school psychologist is in there as a person that is critical towards assisting.
I guess I'm still a little concerned, and I guess we could talk about it later. That's a lot of kids. That's a lot of kids in the building to be funneled into the school counselor, and the school counselor is also doing academic work. And the process to train the school counselors will happen in the beginning of the year, in the beginning of the academic year?
Well, there are school counselors who provide services now to students.
Right, but I'm talking about the ones that you
And we will
mentioned
train all of those again, as well as anyone who is unfamiliar with providing services to students, as well as the 13 new people that are coming into each of the schools. As part of the district floor plan, we're providing schools with multiple counselors if their enrollment figures meet that standard, as well as a social worker who have actual masters in all of the schools that we currently aren't servicing. So part of what Ms. White's design of the district floor plan approved by the superintendent was to create equity across the schools, providing resources like the counselors and the social workers that we don't have currently.
And then instead, is the idea to do more in-house work, more in-house counseling with the kids, to provide groups and to provide individual therapy, as opposed to sending out?
Well, you'd want to do both. There are students that are serviced outside of our school, whether it's at Trinitas, for example, assistance with cura, they're being serviced currently outside of the district. The important piece, and in the transition plan that Mrs. Oros really drafted for us, that will be shared with you, clearly delineates the roles and responsibilities of all of the other offices. Dr. Loisy, in particular, articulated there are files that the SACs currently have that no one in the school can get. The only person legally that could have them is the school nurse. So part of the work that we would do is make sure that there's a transference of the documentation so that the integrity of what has been already preserved for every single student is adhered to at all times. That's as equally as important as servicing them in the school and outside of the school. We don't want people to be having access to documents that should not be in their possession. So we want to make sure that the documentation piece is addressed. That will occur between what the SACs do currently and the nurses.
And just one other question, what's the plan for the family component? So the students having a substance issue, is there a plan
All
to do
of
family?
all of those services, related services that the students receive, that their respective families receive, that doesn't go away.
And that would be done in-house?
The resources that you reference are resources that are afforded to students absent any person. Absent a school social worker, counselor, SAC, those services exist. The key is providing access to the students. So we definitely, there's a body of knowledge that the SACs possess that other people need to learn if they don't know it, access it immediately so that we can provide the services that you referenced to not only the students but to their families as well.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lamort. Mr. Lewis.
Well, I understand what Mr. Lamont was saying. What he basically was saying was, say with a school with 1,200 kids, that means now each counselor, if we have 3 counselors per school, that means each counselor is going to be responsible for 400 plus kids. And at this time, we have counselors that can't even handle 100 kids. So how would they be able to handle 400 kids? Because I know some kids who graduated high school and never even knew who their counselor was. So to say that that these responsibilities will be now shift over to them, I believe that it's going to be it's just a fall waiting to happen. And I don't want the district, and I sure don't want the board to be responsible when the ball dropped or we fell with this task. I think that we need to reevaluate the situation, look over it again, and don't just jump to the first thing that come before us. Like I said, when I was a mascot for Arts High School Jaguars, and when I was on a speech and debate team, it wasn't my social worker, it wasn't my nurse, it wasn't my counselor that came to my games, it was my SAC coordinator that came to my game and supported me. So I think that we need to look at this situation that we have children that's dealing with certain things in the household that they don't want to talk to a nurse about, they don't want to talk to a social worker about. They want to talk to a SAC coordinator about seeing their mother put a needle in her arm every night, or sniff some coke every night, or getting drunk every night, getting high every night, or even the father beating on the mother. We have to value our children and see what they're comfortable with. And personally, when I was in Arts High School 3 years ago, I wasn't comfortable of going to my school counselor for those issues. I was more comfortable with a SAC coordinator who was a community person who understood the issues and the values of our community.
I think it's extremely important not to have misinformation, because that spreads a level of communication that moves like wildfire. the ratio of student to counselor ratio as provided nationally in this country by ASCA, which is the model that we're following in the Newark Public Schools, is a 250-to-1 ratio. As it relates to the other important points that you raised, we obviously need to make sure that we're providing professional development to all of our staff in the entire chain of command so that the services that are supposed to be provided to our students are provided to them.
Mr. Leon, also want you, the team that's handling this to think about going with keep continued and doing things that's not working and keep trying to do the same old thing. It's like when you try to do the same old thing over and over again and you keep losing, sometime down the line you have to change what you're doing in order to get results, and that's what we need to look at.
Any other questions for Ms. Leon?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Superintendent.
I'm sorry, Ms. Leon, one last question.
Sure.
Can you just explain, I just want to be clear in my mind, what's the bottom line about, let me ask you this, right now, is there 32 or 40 SACs who've been eliminated? Because I've gotten different numbers.
They're 40.
40. And how many kids do they serve right now?
Well, technically, they're in all of our schools and they provide services to all of the students that are there. So their services to all of them. Who are they providing services directly to? In the actual document that we have, there are, just last year alone, which is a report that I requested, there were about 1,497. Where did she go? About 1,497 students that they actually were servicing directly.
Okay, where they have them on their caseload, and they're providing services?
Yeah.
So the question I have is the natural question. So for those 1,500 kids who are being provided direct services by the SACs, they're going to receive those services from whom starting in the fall? I mean, are these going to be now the counselors, the social workers? Who's going to provide those services to that group of 1,500 who now are being served by the SACs?
Right. The endorsement that allows these staff members to provide the service that they're providing, some are providing direct services and doing a very good job of it. Others are providing a segue to other services outside of the school, where no one from the Newark Public Schools is providing a service to them. So the majority of the students that are being provided assistance outside of the Newark Public Schools is far greater than the number of 40 SACs that we have currently in the district. So the idea would be twofold. There are students that are right now that are being serviced. We need to make sure that their services continue next year. Right. And then there are new students that if for whatever reasons they become under the influence, that we need to make sure that we provide direct access to them. So there's two parts to your question. There are students that are currently needing services right now. We need to make sure that those continue. Some of them are receiving counseling directly, one-on-one, in the schools. Some of them are receiving counseling outside of the schools. The one-on-one would obviously continue with the professional staff that we have. What we must make sure is that the outside counseling continues, that they're being serviced properly, that somebody's continuing to monitor that somebody's monitoring the monitor of that, so that in fact the services are being rendered to the students. The second piece of that, sir, is that there are students that will unfortunately be identified. We need to make sure that they are identified immediately and that they're provided the services that they need, which is the individual counseling as well as directed outside of the school. We have guidance counselors as well as social workers that provide that type of service today.
Right, Mr. Lone, I appreciate that, but I guess my question is, in August, some number of that 1,500 will still be in the district. And when they walk into school in the fall, who's going to provide the service that today they're receiving from the SAC? I mean, what does that look like? What does that look like? Is that now the counselor? Is that now the social worker? Is that now your outsource? What is that?
The first thing that has to occur is that the transference of any student that is having any medical assistance, that the nurse is aware of that. That process is far more important than any of the others, which are of equal importance. So the first piece is making sure that the students that are under medical assistance, that we are aware of who those students are, and the nurses will be receiving that information. That's prior to students entering. That's with the transference of records that needs to occur, must occur prior to the end of this month as it relates to the assigning of those staff. As it relates to related services, there will be documentation that will then be given to the school counselors and the social workers if they're unaware of that, to make sure that services continue beyond that.
Let me just one last time, Mr. Leon, because what I'm struggling with is the very specific and very practical, right? If I'm a parent of one of these 1,500, and I don't know what the number is who'll be returning, let's say 1,200. And an SAC is providing some kind of service to my child right now, and now those will be eliminated. So that person won't be there in the fall. I'm trying to understand, when that child walks into school in the fall, who's doing what the SAC did? Not the piece that the nurse may have handled or pieces that other pieces may handle, but whatever piece the SAC is handling today, who's going to handle that piece in the fall?
Every single school. In the high schools, you have the ratio that I referenced. There's a ratio also in the elementary schools. The transference of records will allow every single person that's at the school know what are the needs of all of the students that are returning in September.
Who will step up and serve the need? So who will step up and provide the service to the kid that's now being provided? Is that the social worker, counselor? Who specifically?
Every single student has a school counselor, every single one of them. There is not one student in the Newark Public Schools that does not have a school counselor assigned to them. One per every 250 in the secondary schools. That person will be the one who is aware of whatever are the related services that that student needs. Anything dealing with the student medically will be under the auspices of the school nurse, as it should be.
Okay. So for the non-medical needs, the counselor will provide that service. If it's medical, the nurse.
If CURA provides the counseling for those students, then CURA is not being cut by the district. Trinitas is not being cut by the district. These are services that the student seeks outside of the Newark Public Schools, where no Newark Public School employee provides the service. What we do provide is the access, the information sharing, the intervention that is afforded to them is the important piece. And all of those counselors today are aware of all of those services that I just referenced.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's good.
Mr. Leon, by August, we need to have a school-by-school plan for all of the X number of students who are being served inside the school district, outside the school district, by agency, and by type of need. So it will be very clear, if there are gaps, what we have to do to fill those gaps. So we need to have that plan well before school starts and no later than the August board meeting.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Janey. Can I add one friendly amendment to that? Would there be any issue with that group of 1,500, whatever that number is, having some meeting with that parent as soon as possible before the school year so that parent can know how the needs of that child will be met given the elimination of the SAC?
Yes, we'll do that.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Janey. Any other questions for Mr. Leon about the SACs? Okay, thank you. Thank you. One more piece. There's another piece. Huh?
Yes, promotion, retention, and grading.
Yes, sir. All of you have the PowerPoint of this. I walk you through it instead of having to come off the stage, and the audience can basically see the same presentation from where you're sitting. Joining me at this podium are Mr. Kopaz and Mr. Brewster. Don't be scared now.
Mr. Leon, before you begin, it'll be helpful to go through some information about what happens after tonight, because it's a very thick document. No one should assume that tonight's the last word on this document. So would you go through what's happening July, August, September, so the public will have an understanding how they will be engaged?
Sure. On January 7th, the superintendent convened a community conversation where we discussed and began 4 conversations. One on new graduation requirements, one on attendance standards, one on grading policy, and the last one on promotion retention. On the 28th of April, actually on the 23rd of February, this advisory board voted unanimously to adopt the new graduation requirements, as all should recall. On the 28th of April, there was a formal presentation to the superintendent where Dr. Ada Beth Cutler, the Dean of the College of Education at Montclair State University, not only listened to, but was afforded the opportunity to listen to the community as conversations began on the 7th of January and ended on the 28th of April. I share with you the following. Over 2,000 people spoke about these 3 policies that are being referenced in addition to the one on graduation requirements. We had 30 community meetings where 1,000 members of the community sat. There were 3 surveys that were online. The survey for parents, a survey for students, and a survey for staff. We had a recorded overwhelming 1,185 members of those 3 constituencies report out on their thoughts about attendance standards, on conversations with regards to how we grade in schools, as well as the conversation as to how students are promoted and retained, which has resulted in this presentation, which, as the superintendent has clearly indicated, is a conversation by which the board will have at its legal subcommittee the actual policies that are being referenced. So you're getting an overview of what 2,000 people have already commented on and who've actually come out to community meetings and spent hours, of which some of those people are actually here in the audience, and some of them I've heard articulate during the course of the presentations already that they are present. Here's the executive summary. The 3 new policies recognizes through research the unquestionable link between attendance and grading on student achievement. It supports the strategic plan by putting a high value on preparing our students for college and career opportunities. It strives for a goal of 100% as the district's brand, establishing a new and higher standard. It recognizes and defines the need to differentiate and address the needs of all of the students. It provides for fairness, for clarity, and alignment. It is decisive in that there are defined consequences for everyone and the community at large. It is immediate, as it provides timely interventions to help all pupils achieve levels of proficiency, timely notification to the parents and the guardians, procedures for involving parents and guardians in the development and implementation of all of these interventions. As the 8th executive summary, it delineates to all stakeholders and their respective responsibilities. I repeat, it delineates to all stakeholders, and it clearly states what is each of their responsibilities to the students, to the parents, to attendance and school counselors, to teachers, to administration, and to the community.